All right, welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and super excited and jazzed about talking with such a young, refreshing individual who's on social media, by the way, on Instagram, also on Spotify. She's a singer-songwriter. We have Margaret Knapp. Welcome, Margaret. Welcome to the show. Good morning. Oh, you're speechless, to be honest. Let's see. Can you?
Yeah.
There we go.
Hey, here. Hey, thank you so much for having me, Keith.
Yeah.
So I actually met someone who runs the office in DC. I think his name is Joe. I don't remember his last name, but we got connected on LinkedIn because we were going to do a studio tour of Guadalupe in DC in the EWTN studio. So
Wow.
I'm definitely a fan of your station.
Small world. Wow. Especially in the Catholic realm. That's great. Well, real quick, Margaret, just because it was kind of in the topic earlier, and I'm curious to know, have you ever had a near-death experience before?
Yes, actually, when I was a child. Why?
No, it's just so that's kind of the topic is we had Father Cedric Pisegna on last week talking about his near-death experience and how it basically transformed his life, and that's basically how and why he became a Passionist priest. But I was just curious, if you wanted to share it. If you don't want to share, it's fine too. But I figured I'd ask. Just kind
of. Well, I think one that I'll probably just talk about is especially on that kind of note, is maybe what brought me back to Catholicism. And like the situation actually was pretty bad, pretty life or death for me in a sense. But like, what does it mean to have a near-death experience? Isn't like mortal sin a near-death experience, so yeah, I just mean like something that like threatened my actual like physical body. But that experience was really just kind of like someone who actually stalked me, and I had to get a restraining order. But not to go too much into it, but essentially this person was someone that I had dated, and then after ending the relationship, like wanted to ruin my life. So they were like calling my job, telling them that I was like posting people's social security numbers online and some crazy stuff. So I actually had to go to court and to get a protective order against this person. And not everybody has to do that when they end a relationship. But this person, I was living a life of sin with at that time. And after I left that relationship, I moved back home with my parents. And this is at the beginning of COVID, when you weren't allowed to go into the church and receive the Eucharist at certain places. My parents were in the living room watching Mass live streamed on the TV from our parish, and they were kneeling in like just in their pajamas, like watching Mass. And I don't know, after seeing that and having that experience in my life, I just kind of realized like, wow, there's a part of myself that I've been denying for so long. And like, Christ is my identity. And like, there was a reason why I was like in this situation in my life where like, I was really in an unsafe situation. And I think the Lord was who pulled me out of it. And I know the Lord was who pulled me out of it, but really just like, so grateful that he did, because I don't even want to think about the life that I could have had if I had continued down that path. So I really think that like if I didn't go through that experience, I wouldn't have moved home, I wouldn't have seen my parents, then I wouldn't have had this whole reversion. So yeah, I mean, I know that got deep real quick, but just like like we're talking near-death experiences, so
hey,
it's
no,
gonna get great, right?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. That's incredible, and glad to have you back. Glory to Jesus Christ of your reversion there. But so let's talk a little bit about your music, because I know you mentioned you had a reversion. So I'm assuming you were into the music scene before you had that reversion. But how has your faith and kind of your reversion influenced what you do today in like your songwriting process and everything of that nature?
Yeah, I definitely was, or like I still have some friends in that scene. I would just say it's like the secular, like the cool people who want to be like, indie pop, sort of like very LA, like even hyper pop, I think now is like getting more popular. But I really like like jazz and funk and pop kind of mixed together. So
Mm,
I'm definitely still influenced by like some of my friends who do make music in the secular industry based on like the sound. But
mhm,
one thing that I talked about before is that the lyrics and even sometimes just the sound really don't reflect a Christian lifestyle or even things that like Christians should be listening to. So when I reverted to Catholicism, I lost like a ton of connections in the
mm.
secular music industry and like people like messaging me saying how stupid I was and like blocking me essentially.
Wow.
So I guess moving forward, like in my music journey, I knew I wanted to be authentic Catholic.
Mm.
Because before I was like living for the world and I was trying to appease the world and it wasn't even getting anywhere. I mean, I definitely released music and it was all done by myself. And I feel like now God, like coming back into the faith, God provided me like a really good producer. He put me in a network. I mean, I feel like once I listened to the God was telling me to make music for him, it was all about like, how do I make this as like open as possible, like family friendly, like anyone can listen to
Mhm,
it. And it's not only that, but it like music has the power to heal. And I
mhm,
want to do that for people. I feel like when I write music, I think about like, how am I healing the other person that's listening to this song? And mainly that's done through lyrics, in my opinion, because the clearer you can hear your words, it's like so powerful that people hear what you're saying. So definitely clean lyrics. And then also the music has to be high quality. Now, what
mm.
I have online right now, I'll just say right now, I produce that. I'm not a producer. So these are like my personal projects. And I will say that my next album that I'm releasing in a few months, they
Oh,
don't have a release date yet, um, but I'm releasing in a few months, is wholly professionally produced, like
mm.
full studio album. So really excited for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just about to ask you if there's anything happening, and thank you so much for sharing that you're going to be releasing something. I'm assuming you could find it on kind of all the major platforms like Spotify, Apple.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Spotify, Apple Music,
Okay.
Amazon, YouTube, anywhere that they have streaming services, essentially, like our even iHeartRadio. So yeah,
Nice.
lots of places. Hopefully, Guadalupe Radio.
That's awesome. Well, one thing too that I saw it was almost a year ago. I want to say it is you performed at something called Catholicpalooza. What is
Oh,
Catholicpalooza?
yeah. Catholicpalooza was originally just supposed to be like a few people and their bands getting together and just kind of having like a small festival, I would say, but it kind of snowballed into something so much bigger than they could ever imagine. So, and now we have like an official, unofficial chaplain, which is Father Maximilian Mary Dean. And he's a hermit up in Pennsylvania, but he makes music.
Hmm.
And so with his like spiritual guidance and a few amazing people, like Wafers 3D, his name's Adam, and then Daniel,
Mhm.
who's hallowed, really are kind of the masterminds behind this. And what they want to bring is exactly artists like myself who like have music that comes from a Catholic artist, but isn't necessarily praise and worship music, because we find that there's so many people that are like, I just can't listen to that droney Christian music that all sounds the same and they don't, it's all Protestant and they don't have any Catholic stuff going on in there. I'm like, well, where's the alternative for the culture for young Catholics in music? And Catholicpalooza, I really feel like is the answer to that.
Mhm.
Because even though we're not, I mean, Father Maximilian in his music certainly is. It's very prayerful music. And not saying that I don't have songs that are prayerful, but really just music that isn't specifically like praise and worship style, but you can listen to it as a Catholic. You're not
Mhm.
conflicted morally about the things you're consuming, like when we're producing. So,
Wow. That's awesome. And so that is that like a annual thing? Like are they doing another one, another Catholic Palooza?
yeah, the first one was last year, and that was
Okay.
kind of like the prototype.
Mm.
Now, this year, they haven't really announced anything about the dates or the location officially, so I don't want to say,
Sure.
but I will just say It is going to happen again this year. I don't believe it will be in Richmond like it was last. The goal is to have it in different areas so that we can bring the music to different populations. So.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to. I have to, one of these years I have to make it over there to the Catholicpalooza.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So, because you're, a musician that's Catholic, do you have any advice to anyone out there? Maybe they're young, or maybe they're older and looking to become something like a Catholic musician. What kind of advice would you give them?
Don't try to be like anybody else. Just be the person that God created you to be, and find try to pray about what the will of God is for you in your life. And then, especially for your music, I would recommend praying anytime before you write, anytime before you perform, anytime before you share your music with anybody. Invoke Our Lady.
That's awesome. That's great advice. So many things that I do in my life, I should really just start praying before I do anything. I think that would help so many problems in just general society, but also myself. Just starting to pray before you make do any sort of action. That's awesome. So you mentioned you have projects going on. Your album is being released. Any live performances happening soon?
So probably Catholicpalooza in the summer. It's probably going to be in July. I actually performed a ton last year. So I'm actually taking a little bit of a break, and then I'm also focusing on recording, which is like a full-time job outside of my full-time job. So that's kind of right now, but probably towards the end of the year is when I'll start picking back up those gigs. So.
Perfect. Well, I can't thank you enough for hopping on and sharing your story and giving us a little bit of background into what you do, and just being that authentic Catholic artist. So thank you so much, Margaret Knapp. You can find her on Instagram, The Mags Music, or on Spotify. My goodness. So if you're able to hang tight, we're going to be on the After Show Clubhouse on YouTube. Feel free to join us, Margaret, as well. But otherwise, we'll send you off to Mass on GRN here. God bless, and make it a joyful day.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.